Welcome to the pre-show, everyone. I don't even have my headphones in, so I can only verify that you're hearing me by looking at my meters. And it looks like you are. I just can't hear myself. I mean, I can hear myself, but I can't hear you hearing myself, which is really the most important part. We're just getting going. I'm about 2.5 minutes behind where I usually am. Let's fix our headphones, get those in, so that we can hear you later on when you call, and so that I can hear me talking to you and make sure that's going well. Oh, let's record. I'm not even recording. Here we go. We are recording on YouTube, so that part was captured. Let's record here as well. Let's move this over here. The lights aren't even on. Look how dark it is. I'll show you. This is how dark it is. Look, it's spooky. This is not exactly normally how things are here in the studio. I have a few doors open. Usually I pull all the blinds on the live stream so that I can control the light. Let's turn out all the lights on and apply. Let's see what happens. Oh, look, there's me and there's the background. Look, there is a studio here. Who said there wasn't a studio? Let's close out a few things on my screen. Let's get this ready. What else do we need to get ready? We need to change. I don't know that I put a message on the website this week. So let's put a message right now on the website that says, come on, there we go. Under my settings, the promo bar, and let's have it start today. Let's have it stop today. And my Security Plus study group is happening right now. Click here to join us. Same link. Reset the cookie, save the changes, and we're in good shape there. I haven't done podcast audio. That's what we'll do right now. So the podcast audio, got my script right here. Here we go, everybody. I'm James Messer, and you're listening to the Professor Messer Security Plus Study Group. This study group was recorded on January 17th, 2018. If you'd like to watch a video replay, visit my website at professormesser.com. I'm James Messer, and you're listening to the Professor Messer Security Plus Study Group After Show. That didn't sound right, did it? Need something to drink. It was abrupt, wasn't it? Here we go. I'm James Messer, and you're listening to the Professor Messer Security Plus Study Group After Show. This after show was recorded on January 17th, 2018. If you'd like to watch a video replay, visit my website at professormesser.com. All right, well, there you go. That is the podcast. We can get rid of the script. The script go away. We can get Keynote going here. Thank you, OneNote, for finally going away there. Do we have a presentation to show you today? That would be good if there was an actual presentation with actual information on it. Let's do a camera check, shall we? We've got me. Hi, how you doing? Good to see you. Thanks for coming. There's the bird cam. There is our question of the day. There's the presentation. It looks good. How about the phone number? And everything matches up there too. All right. Well, I'm fine with that. I'm sitting on my headphones, which are slightly uncomfortable. Let's see if we can pull this over. Here we go. That's pretty good. Hello, Ohio, Jersey, Virginia. Somebody's getting a UPS delivered today. You're getting power. I'm assuming an uninterruptible power supply and not something that's coming from UPS. Wow, Alpha checking in. I might have kinfolk over there. I have kinfolk from Bluntstown and from Mariana. So, and of course, scattered amongst this section of Florida. The world headquarters here is Tallahassee, Florida. How's the weather out there? How is it? Let's find out, shall we? It is, I don't have much in the bird feeder. Oh, is the live stream not live, or is it live? It's not live. The video is not live, and this is going to bother me now. So I'm going to go restart that. Here we go. I'm going to walk away. Be right back. All right. What else have we got to do today? See how sad that bird feeder is with no bird food in it? I need to do that after the live stream. Had no idea. It's cold out there. 33 degrees Fahrenheit, 0.6 Celsius. Or is it centigrade? It's hard to know anymore. Let's see. What else can we do here? Need to get a few things ready to go. Let's get something ready to go, shall we? Get the Socrative going. Utah's here. Brazil. California. Very nice. Oh, good. Yeah, UPS these days is a good investment. Get that going. I've got a couple going here. Okay, we're recording. 2.5 minutes. Ready to go. I think we're ready. Oh, that's not good. Power outage corrupted your flash drive in your router. Had to reimage from scratch. I hate that when that happens. I hate it. Does this work? That works. Let's take a shot from the Singer's Soothing Throat Spray, Citrus and Honey. The fast-acting herbal supplement. Let's find out how the herbs do. Ugh. It must be good because it doesn't taste so awesome. They have to hide whatever it is in there with some type of lemon or honey or something. I have the cinnamon too. Hide it with cinnamon. It's just sort of a best practice in life. Hide it with cinnamon, and you'll be fine. What else do we got going on here? We got drink. We're live. We're good. I think we're okay. I think we got everything we need to do a live stream. Everything appears to be working. People are, let's check status. We're going to be starting here in about a minute and a half. Let's see if people are actually here. Chat room's here, so you guys are here. We're good. Analytically, yeah, people are showing up. Who said we weren't having a show? There it is right there. It's all good. Vegas in the house. South Texas is cold, huh? It's kind of cold here. It's going to get super cold tonight. For Florida, super cold is in the 20s. No snow, but things will ice up nicely. The plumbers appreciate the business. Let's see what else I need to have ready here. I think that's it. I think we're good. Real good. What else have we got to do? Not much. We'll just do this thing and see how it goes. This will be fun. I've got this, and then I've got 2 weeks off because there's 5 Wednesdays in January. So I'm kind of looking forward to having this done and that done and et cetera, et cetera. All right. Let's see how it goes here with what we're doing. I think we're ready for study group. We are ready. And then we can break it down. We can do some other things too. Stick around for the live call-in afterwards. Let's see. Do I have everything ready here? I do. It's ready here. Okay. Live stream, everybody. Here we go. Here we go. Boom. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the January 2018 Professor Messer Security Plus Study Group, coming to you live from the world headquarters of Messer Studios here in Tallahassee, Florida. Welcome. Thanks for joining us on our first Security Plus Study Group of the new year. Happy New Year, everybody. It's now the 17th of January. It's kind of old to say Happy New Year at this point, but I'm saying it anyway. Happy New Year. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being in the chat room, everybody. Got to talk to some folks in the pre-show. Got to answer a few questions there. We will be answering a lot of questions as we go through things today. I've got plenty of Q&A in our first hour. We're going to do a live Q&A where you answer the questions online on the World Wide Web. And then we're going to just open up phone lines for what will be something about the second hour. It'll be after the first hour. Who knows how long it will go or how short it might go, but we're going to try that anyway. We've got a lot to go through today. I thank you for joining us. We would not be able to do these live streams without your ongoing support. Of course, every minute of every one of my Security Plus videos is available for you to watch online for free. No registration, no monthly fees, no subscriptions, no nothing. You just click on it and watch it. That's what it's designed to be. You can also get offline versions of these courses as well. You can buy them and take them with you. I've got both video, I've got audio versions of it, I've got combo packages, I've got PDF course notes that come along with this. You can find out all about that at professormesser.com/getsecplus. Of course, keep watching what we're doing here. I've got, of course, questions and things I put on Twitter at professormesser.com/Twitter. All the newest 501 videos, the SY0501, we'll talk about that in a moment. All available on YouTube, professormesser.com/YouTube. And of course, don't pay full price for your vouchers. If you are a student with an EDU email, you should go to the academic store for CompTIA. But if you're not a student like me, you don't have an EDU email account, there's still a discount available for you. You can find that at professormesser.com/vouchers. There's also quiz questions online. You can find these whether you're taking the A+, Network Plus, or Security Plus. These are designed to be for the 401, but I will be putting 501 questions up there, I believe. I've got to check my schedule, see what that looks like, but you can find all of them at professormesser.com/popquiz. There will also be an audio version of this study group available. You can, of course, go to my website and watch the video replay. You can go to YouTube and watch the video replay, but you can go to the study group podcast link at professormesser.com/podcasts, and you can listen to an audio version. Of course, being a podcast just shows up in your podcast feed. Your podcast grabber may even download it automatically and put it on your mobile device. So you can be anywhere you'd like, on a subway. You can be underground. There's no connection to the rest of the world, and yet you can still listen to the podcasts. Today, we're going to be doing Q&A. We're going to do a lot of Q&A. And the first section of Q&A, you will get to answer the questions that I ask. The way you do that is you can open up a new browser window and go to professormesser.com/QA. And that will take you right to the questions. You don't have to change your screen at that point. Just leave it right there on that page. The questions will automatically update as we go. You can also download an app for this. Of course, you can download an app. You can go to your favorite app store where you get your apps, where the app listing is for the device and your apps, and look for the Socrative student app. Socrative is this third-party service that we use to do this. The Socrative student app, you will need to know the room name, which is Professor Messer, all one word, PROFESSORMESSER, and that will get you where you need to go. You will see questions there. In fact, you will see a question. I've got one there from last month just to see if it's working for you. So this will be our first one to try to make sure you can get into Socrative okay. If you were here last month, this will look familiar to you. Maybe you remember the answer. If you're there, the question is, which of the following would be most associated with TOTP? So if you can go to professormesser.com/QA and you can see this, you can open up your app and you can see this question, you're in the right place. If you can't see this question, then you're definitely not in the right place. You should be able to see something like this. Well, you'll have options there, but I, of course, can see all of these things that are happening there. I need to bring up my highlighter so I can highlight things on the screen. There we go. So 57% have said TOTP is good for logging into Facebook. We got a tie for second, 16-19. Well, they're changing rapidly. Encrypting an email with PGP and using a badge to unlock a door. 8% said digitally sign an Outlook message, and 3% said store a password in a database. So which one is it? Which one of these does it happen to be? It's got to be one of them, right? I think most of us might have remembered this one from last month because the correct answer is indeed A, logging into Facebook. It's TOTP. So there's your rewind. The time-based one-time password algorithm is what TOTP stands for. It's an additional authentication factor. So you put in your username, you put in your password, and then it will prompt you to put in either this number or it will ask you to put this number in after your password. Some places when you're logging in, you type your password and then you immediately type the numbers in right after that. And it hashes the whole thing and sends it back. And the other side of this hashes all of those. It's all based on time, so there's a synchronization of this. It usually updates every 30 seconds, but your TOTP that you use may be a little bit different, and it's commonly used. Google, Facebook, Microsoft. I have a list of, 15 sites where I have a TOTP client. I use Authy, and I just have a huge list of those where I can choose any, whatever site I'm on. It will prompt me for username, password, and this third-party piece. So that was our rewind for the month. Hopefully you were able to get in there okay. You were able to see the questions. You were able to answer the questions. And that's what we're going to do today for this first hour. I got plenty more to come. Plenty of questions to go through as we step through all of these. As many of you are aware, here in January of 2018, there are 2 Security Plus exam versions that you could opt to take. You only need to take one of these, but you have to choose. About 3 years ago, CompTIA introduced the SY0401 questions. It was really the exam objectives. That SY0401 was updated in October to the SY0501. But they don't just get rid of the 401 immediately because some people are studying for the 401. Instead, they give it a nice big ramp. They give it a 9-month overlap in this particular case because the SY0401 is not going to be retired until July of 2018, this year. Not this month, this year, in July. The 401 goes away. So even if you're studying right now for the SY0401, you have plenty of time to keep studying. Now, if you're somebody who wants to take the newest version of the exam, I get it. That might be something good to have. So you can, of course, take the SY0501 instead. You can do whatever you'd like, but you only need to take one of these. There's no reason to take both. If you are studying for the SY0401, do not study from the materials that are labeled SY0501. If you are taking the SY0501, do not study from materials that say SY0401. They are very, very different in how they work. So make sure that you take the right exam for the questions, for the exam objectives that you've been studying for. So there is also a single exam. You don't have to take multiple exams for the Security Plus. You only need to take the one. So pick one and go with that. It's going to be a maximum of 90 questions. You might get fewer than 90, but it will be somewhere around there. It won't be more than 90. You have 90 minutes to finish this as well. You need a passing score of 750 between a range of 100 and 900. So it's not percentages they use. We think every question is worth a different number of points. So it's very difficult to figure out the details of how many answers you need to get right because there isn't a number there. You just have to do the best you can and make sure, hopefully, that the passing score goes above 750. You will get multiple choice questions. I think a lot of us are used to that on our exams. Pick A, B, C, or D. That will be the answer. So there is also performance-based questions. So you will see that there will be questions that are anything but multiple choice. There might be fill in the blank. They might put you at a command prompt and ask you to perform a function. They might give you a matching question. They might give you a list of pictures and ask you what these pictures mean. They might ask you to put things in a particular order from ascending to descending. You just never know what you're going to get. So this is why you need to be prepared. Usually the first set of questions you get on the exam will be performance-based. There will be a handful of those. And then you'll get a whole bunch of multiple choice right after that. So you've got a few choices there. What I like to do on my study group is ask you questions then, and the first question I've got for you will be very similar to the first questions on your exam. This is a performance-based question I'm about to give you. So this will be similar to something you may be presented with on the exam. It's not a multiple choice. So you're going to have to figure this out yourself. I have 5 tasks for you that are listed, and I'm asking you, what secure protocol should you use for these tasks? The first task is access your router using a CLI terminal screen. The second task is talk with customers on scheduled conference calls. Task 3 is accept customer purchases from your primary website. Task 4 is authenticate from a network switch using your internal directory services. And task 5 is synchronize the time across all of your devices. So what secure protocol should you use for each of these tasks? So you can put this in on your Socrative. You can put number 1 and just tell me what secure protocol you would use for that task. Number 2, tell me what secure protocol you would use for that. So this is one where you do have to know these secure protocols and how these would work and how these operate and how these really do work. You do have to know about secure protocols. This is the Security Plus exam. So you are definitely going to need to know about secure protocols. It becomes pretty important. So make sure you go through this process of figuring out and knowing not just what the protocols are and which ones are secure and which ones aren't secure. Make sure you know how to use them. That is really the important part of these exams. They rarely ask you a definition question on the exam. They almost always ask you how you would use this technology, how you would implement this technology, not what the name of it is. Nobody cares what the name of it is. We want to know how you use it. So this is a question that asks, how do you use this? And I assure you, each one of these I have done using a secure protocol because we've needed to do that. We go into these large organizations. They've got a huge data center. They've got thousands of users and even more people coming from the internet. How do you keep things secure? How can we set these up? How can we accept customer purchases from our primary website with the secure protocol? How can we talk to customers and schedule conference calls with the secure protocol? You need to know those things. And not only do you need to know them, they're in the exam objectives. So not only do you really need to know them, you absolutely need to know them for the exam because you could be asked anything like this for these secure protocols. Not a lot of people answering these yet. It takes a lot of Googling to find this. You aren't going to find this on Google. That's another reason I ask these questions this way, because there's no single Google search you're going to be able to do to make this work. Some of you are putting some answers in. Let's have a look. So now that we've given enough time for people to kind of go through these and answer some of these questions, we've got a few that are popping up here and there. And most of you are doing a pretty good job of knowing these, although I think number 2 may have gotten a lot of people into a bit of a sticky wicket. Let's see what the answers are. Here we go. What secure protocol should you use for these tasks? The first one we're going to look at is to access your router using a CLI terminal screen. And if I look through the list of everybody who's responding, I would say 99% of you got this one right. It is SSH. It is Secure Shell is the name of this, SSH Secure Shell. That's a good one. That's a terminal screen. You've got just a simple text display of the server. And instead of using Telnet, which is not secure, you would use SSH. The second one is talk to customers on scheduled conference calls. Now, the scheduled conference calls part is sort of not necessary for understanding what the secure protocol is, but it describes a very common business task. We got a conference call with customers once a week, but how do we communicate securely over that? We would do that with SRTP, which is the secure version of RTP, which is the real-time transport protocol. So that's why the S is there for secure. So you want to have that SRTP in front of it. Looking at the answers that came through, that was probably the one that most people weren't quite sure of. We don't often see the voice over IP protocols that are occurring behind the scenes, but voice over IP is not a protocol. We were really looking for exactly that. There are a few of you that got that one, though. Well done with that. Some of you said it's just voice over IP. Nope. Voice over IP by itself, RTP, in the clear. If you captured those packets, and you can do this in something as simple as Wireshark, which is free to download, you can capture all the packets for voice over IP and then tell Wireshark, just replay those, and you can listen to the conversation. So you don't want that to happen. Use the secure version of this, SRTP. Number 3 was accept customer purchases from your primary website. Almost everybody got this one right. HTTPS, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, secure. Got the S on there. Got the secure. Now, one of the things that I do on my site, it doesn't even matter if you're making a purchase. If you go to professormesser.com, every page is secure. We upgraded the website last year so that we would be able to have every single page on the website. Everything you do is all HTTPS. So that's one way I I don't even separate out pages. Is this page secure? Is this page not? Doesn't matter. Everything's encrypted. Just makes it easier for me. Is it lazy or is it secure-minded? Why, of course, it's me being very secure-minded. It's not me being lazy at all. Number 4 was authenticate from a network switch using your internal directory services. From a network administrator perspective, something you do all the time. You need to make a change on a switch. You need to authenticate to the switch. You're usually connecting via, number 1, SSL, or SSH, secure shell. So you use your SSH client or you use SSH, the command line, to connect to the device. And then it prompts you for a username and password. Let's go username and password. Let's do this. So that's one where the username and password needs to be authenticated somehow. And we usually don't put usernames and passwords on switches. The username and password's on some centralized database, and the switch now has to make a request to that database to see, is this person giving me the correct authentication? So commonly we do something like LDAP. That's a very common, or Radius, or TACAX Plus, or something like that. And I would accept any one of those that was secure, but LDAP-S is the one you need to know from the exam objectives. There are a number of ways you could have done that, but LDAP-S is the one that's listed in the exam objectives. To have that there, the Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, so LDAP-S. And the last one was synchronize the time across all of your devices. Is this a trick question? Sort of, but not really, because the existing way that you do it now, NTP, has been updated behind the scenes on the servers to support something called NTP-SEC, which is really what the exam objectives would look for. From the client's perspective, you're using normal NTP. There's no addition, there's no changes. The NTP-SEC is backwards compatible, and a lot of the things that added security to NTP were on the server side. So the formal version of what that project is called is NTP-SEC. So you may hear it referred to that way. Some folks are asking the chat room on number 3, which is accept customer purchases from your primary website. Would you accept SSL? I guess I could. Sure, why not? In fact, the more appropriate response would probably be TLS, would be another good one. But as I've mentioned in the past, although SSL isn't really used anymore, it was the one that was the original. And even when TLS was introduced, it was harder to say. SSL just kind of flows off the tongue. So we never changed what we said. Have you turned on SSL? Yep. But what we really were saying is, have you turned on TLS? And the person we're talking to says, I know we're talking about TLS because nobody uses SSL. So yes, I've turned it on. And in fact, you'll see even today, modern equipment that does SSL decryption, no, it doesn't. It does TLS decryption. But we don't know what it is. Most people see TLS and wonder, what are you talking about? Why aren't you running SSL? Well, because you aren't. You're really running TLS. So absolutely, I would accept that for sure. I've got more questions for you. I think most of you did pretty good on this one as I went through the answers you all put in. A lot of you got stuck on number 2. So remember that secure RTP is an important one to know, especially if you're using voice over IP. I've got more questions for you. Let's do another one. Remember, no answering in the chat room. I'm looking at you. Don't do that. Don't answer in the chat room. Here we go with a question that talks about disaster recovery. Just what you want to talk about on a day like today where it's snowing everywhere. What category of disaster recovery site would commonly provide racks and equipment, but no software or data? Would this be a hybrid, a warm, a secondary, a cloud, or a private? Which one of those would it be? Would it be hybrid, warm, secondary, cloud, or private? What category of disaster recovery site would commonly provide racks and equipment, but no software or data? You go to professormesser.com/QA. Please don't put any hints or answer in the chat room. We're all going to try to figure it out and know these as we go through them. A lot of you, I think, will probably know this one from disaster recovery. This has been on the exam for years now. I think probably back to the 301 version. So this may be one, in fact, many of you are familiar with because a lot of the places you work have a disaster recovery plan. If you're working in IT now, you may be very familiar with your disaster recovery plan and how all of these work together. I, of course, have my own idea of what a disaster recovery plan will be. It involves a lot of yelling and flailing of arms and running around in a circle. I do have most of my data is held off-site. It's hard to have a good disaster recovery plan when you record videos because there are, in a single video that I record, it's multi-gigabytes in size. So you've got, I usually record 2 videos at the same time, one of my screen and one of this face. And then I've got 2 of them that are about the same size. So I have, 20 gig, 40 gig of data. It's hard to have that stored off site. And in a single sitting, I might record 6 or 10 videos. So now I've got 10 times that amount. I've now got 600 gigabytes of data. You're getting now close to a terabyte just from one day video, sitting here for one day and doing video, which isn't a lot. It's only a couple hours until my voice gives out. So you run into that about disaster recovery. Let's see how we did with disaster recovery. Let's click how do we do. Now that I've talked a lot about the stories of recording video and disaster recovery, 66% of you said warm, 65%. So absolutely got a majority there. 20%, a nice chunk of you said it's a secondary disaster recovery site. 12% said a cloud. Why wouldn't it be? Isn't everything cloud? Shouldn't we just choose cloud always? 3% said private. 3% said hybrid. Kind of a tie for fourth there with those two. So which one would this be? How would we have a site that just had the racks and equipment and we kind of show up with our software and our data? That would be a warm site. Kind of the middle place. A cold site, cold disaster recovery site, is an empty room. There's nothing there. 4 walls and an air conditioner. Kind of what they give you on a cold site. Maybe they give you the air conditioner. I think most of the time they would. But a cold site has nothing. A warm site, you show up, there is equipment. There's servers waiting for you. But they're not your servers. They're somebody else's servers, which means you're now going to have to configure these servers, maybe restore onto these servers. Maybe you've contracted to have the exact model of what you use in your production facility so that when you show up on site, it's an exact mirror duplicate, but you don't own it. It's just in a rack waiting for you. You bring any additional things that you might need, mostly hardware. There might be hardware waiting for you. You might have to bring a little bit, but they give you just enough to get going for this hardware ready to go. So bring the hardware, bring your data, install the data, and your warm site's going to be up and running. You can turn your warm site into a much warmer site once you get the data up and running, and you'll be recovered. Obviously, it takes a little more time to have that there. You might have to have a day or so to prep before you can actually move over to a warm site, but that's less expensive than running a hot site, isn't it? So if we look at our answers, if you answered B, warm site, got it absolutely right. I kind of made up the term secondary for disaster recovery. We really don't have a secondary recovery site. There's no formal term of that. I guess you could informally call your site a secondary site, but that's not the answer. Cloud-based, well, cloud provides lots of stuff, but it would not just provide racks and equipment. In fact, cloud doesn't really provide you with equipment or racks or anything physical. You just kind of connect and you're up and running. Private, not a private site. That's not what we're shooting for. Private site would probably be everything, wouldn't it? It'd be our site. We would have everything ready to go. And that's certainly not the description that would best describe something that would just provide racks and equipment, but no software or data. And hybrid site is, it really describes a cloud configuration, not a disaster recovery site. So well done. Most of us got that one. 65% of us got that one right. The answer was B, It's a warm site. I could use a warm site right now, couldn't I? So let's now talk about, this was in the chat room earlier. I did not address it, but that's your hint. If you were here earlier, you might have seen it go by. So let's talk about the next question. Here we go. Next question coming. It is, what encryption can use can use 3 keys, 2 keys, or the same key 3 times? Which one of those? Which is kind of, this is actually, it's a little bit of a trick question. I will clarify it a bit. Really, we use, what encryption can use 3 keys? That's really what it does these days. But there are ways you could have this encryption use 2 keys. There are ways that you can have this encryption use the same key 3 times. Although I will tell you that's not how you would normally implement it. So really, I would say 3 keys or 2 keys. That is the way that that you would implement. I'll explain more in just a bit. The possible answers are A, asymmetric, B, IPsec, C, symmetric, D, cipher block chaining, E, 3DES, whatever that is. So which one of those would allow us to use 3 keys, 2 keys, or the same key 3 times? Or I will modify this question to really be, what encryption can use 3 keys? And sometimes 2 keys. But really, you'd never use the same key 3 times. We'll explain more about that in a moment. Although, if you look at the definition of what this encryption does, that is actually the definition. But you don't do that. Don't use the same key 3 times. Try to use, if you got a chance to use multiple keys with encryption, use a bunch of keys, right? You want to make this as difficult as possible for the bad guys. If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA, and you might be able to do that for all of these. This is one where whenever I get into trying to figure out possible answers, this would be the way to do it. Kind of break down which one of these would it not be, and then kind of throw those out. Maybe you can narrow it down from what those are. If I look at the possible answers, that's what you guys are doing right now. Kind of throwing out, there's at least one everyone's throwing out, and then we're all trying to figure out the rest from all of these. One of the things that's important with this, by the way, is you have to choose the best answer. And that's something that will really be a challenge. You have to really find the best answer for this. Maybe you know what the best answer is for all of these. This is one that becomes pretty useful to know as well. So make sure you know your encryption. You have to know your encryption for this exam. Let's see how we did with this answer. What encryption use 3 keys, 2 keys, or the same key 3 times, but never do that? I should have put that at the end, but never do that. How do we do? 44% of us said triple DES. That's what that 3DES is. I don't say it right when I say the question because I don't want to give anything away. I just describe what's on the screen, but you have to know, oh, that's triple DES. That's what that is. Well, we have a tie, a 3-way tie for second, really. 16% of you said asymmetric, 16% of you said symmetric, 20% of you said cipher block chaining. And then 3% of you, practically nobody, said IPsec. That's the one I said. Most of you threw that one out and said, nah, it can't be IPsec. And you're right. IPsec does not use 3 keys, 2 keys, or the same keys 3 times. What the thing that does is the one that did get 46%. So I know everybody kind of, you have that cringe when I say it wrong, like 3DES. Oh, it's not how you say it. Don't do that. Do not be in a meeting and say, I think we should implement 3DES. Don't do that. That will be a bad meeting for you. Triple DES is what that's called. And you'll know why after I explain this, why we call it triple DES. Now, the DES cipher has been around for a very, very, very long time. DES was sort of the powerhouse of what we were doing with encryption. The government used it extensively. This was the data encryption standard, and they meant it. Like, this is what we used as a standard, and we used it a lot. But DES got a little long in the tooth, as they say. It was a type of encryption that did not provide really the encryption that we needed because it got old. It was a very small key, relatively speaking, and it's one that we found after a bit of time, after our computing power increased, we found we could brute force this in a day or so. And so as soon as the government realized it's not as strong as it used to be, they said, we're not going to use DES anymore. Now 3DES, 3DES, triple DES is the name. Triple DES takes DES and kind of extends the use of it. But what it does, you normally use 3 keys. That's where the triple comes from. So we grab 3 keys, 3 of these DES keys, and we would use these keys. We would use we would run through the cipher one time, encrypting the data with 1 key. Then we would run through the data and decrypt it with another key. Well, wait, if you encrypt it with 1 key and you decrypt it with another key, you're not getting back to the plain text. That's right. That's the point. Because on the third run, you're going to encrypt it with a 3rd key. So you're effectively running the same DES algorithm 3 times through. Although you're not encrypting every time, you're encrypting, then you're decrypting, then you're encrypting again. Kind of weird in how we do that. But there's a method to that madness. These days, we tend not to use triple DES. You could still do it. There's some older equipment that still supports it. Never run DES. Don't do that. You absolutely don't want to do that. But there is equipment out there that can do that. These days, we pretty much do everything with AES, the Advanced Encryption Standard. This is the way triple DES works. So here it is. You've got a bit of plain text that you would like to encrypt and send across the network. This is very commonly used for network communication. And what we're going to do is take our first key, and we're going to have to hit the right key. There's our DES key number 1, and we're going to run through an encryption process. This is DES encryption. If we stopped right here, it's exactly the same as DES encryption that we used before. And we got some ciphertext. But now we want to take that ciphertext and decrypt it with another key. This is why we specify don't use the same key 3 times. If you use the same key for the first process that you use on the second process, you effectively get back to where you started. So don't do that. That doesn't even make sense. Why would I do that? We just performed the same thing and now we're done. Instead, use a different key, which means the ciphertext we're decrypting using a different key, and we obviously will get a different ciphertext. And then we'll grab that ciphertext and we will encrypt it with a 3rd DES key to finally get the end ciphertext that we're going to use. Now, obviously, to find the original plain text, this process has to be repeated in reverse. We have to reverse that whole process. So it's a little bit more work, but the key doesn't get any bigger. So we were able to extend the use of DES just a little bit. And that was important for equipment that was older legacy equipment. We couldn't have this equipment automatically jump to AES, which uses much larger keys. We double the key size. So AES was a pretty nice improvement, but it meant that we have firewalls and VPN equipment. These are not inexpensive devices, and we might have deployed many of them. We can't just buy all new ones immediately. Our budget doesn't allow. We might be able to buy 1 a year. So can we take DES and extend it? We'll use triple DES, and we can at least extend these devices out with their current hardware until we have time to replace them. It could be a little bit easier. So that's where this 3 keys, 2 keys, or the same key 3 times, but don't do that, comes from. We have triple DES to do that. The 48% of you did get that one absolutely right. Cipher block chaining. We can talk about cipher block chaining, but that does not use multiple keys. That does indeed use the same key, although there are some cipher block modes that will use a different type of randomization. It will use an initialization vector, or it will use the original ciphertext that it created in the previous step as some ciphertext randomization for the next step. There's a whole video and cipher block mode piece in the SY0501 that you didn't have in the 401. So you may be getting more into cipher block modes as you study for your 501. This is not referring to asymmetric or symmetric encryption, which are encryption types, but don't specify specific methods for the encryption. There are many different methods to perform asymmetric encryption. There are many different methods, ciphers, to provide symmetric encryption. So it's very broad terms that really aren't describing how you do it. They're describing what you're doing. And IPsec uses either a single key, maybe use a certificate, uses different options, but it doesn't use 3 keys, 2 keys, or the same key 3 times, although you could do triple DES inside of an IPsec tunnel. How you like that one? You could do DES inside of an IPsec tunnel. That may be the encryption you choose, but that's not the best answer. Always on your exams, we want the best answer. And the best answer is, in this case, triple S. That is what we were looking for on that one. So much new things to know in the exam. So many more options available and things you would go through. You have to know all of this for your exam. And as some of you are aware, I've taken every bit of text and every graphic from every single one of my videos, and I put it into a document for you so that you can have a look through all of these. This is my course notes. I have these for my A+, my Network Plus, Security Plus. Anything I do, I create course notes for this. The 501 version of the course notes, 94 pages long. It's big. It's enormous because there's so much in the exam. You can find out all about this at professormesser.com/securitycn. It's the piece. Oh, there's the question. Next question you're getting. The thing that I like about it is it is complete. People have said, you've picked out the things that you think is important. I want everything. So, okay, I'm going to give you everything in the course notes. I'm going to give you every single video, every bit of text, every graphic, every diagram, the bit on DES. Where's the DES? I did randomization, encryption, perfect forward secrecy. All of these encryption algorithms are in there. Can we jump to any one of those? So let's jump. I just clicked on that. It jumped to it because those are all set up dynamically. So all that thing we just talked about, DES, asymmetric encryption, symmetric keys from asymmetric key. That's your Diffie-Hellman. Digital signatures. They're in here. There's the DES. Having that through here. So the thing we just talked about, it's all in here. It's all there and available for you. It's enormous. You can get both a digital version or printed version. The printed version costs a little bit more because it's physical and printed, and I ship it to you. But I also include the digital version if you buy the physical version. So you've got some options there. What you can do, and every dollar of this goes back to support the website. So I want to thank everyone for your ongoing support. Would not be able to do this without you. Thank you. Yep, there are others out there too. I have an ICND 1 for the CCENT exam. Would like to do an ICND 2. I think that would be a good one to have too. So a lot of people like having these notes available. It doesn't replace your book. It doesn't replace the videos, but it's a great study piece to go before you go into the exam. Now that you've gone through all the videos, now that you've read the book, how can you summarize everything? This is the way to do it. Find out more at professormesser.com/securitycn. Let's do another question. You already saw this question. I hit the button. Those of you listening to the podcast didn't see the question. Those of you watching saw me hit the wrong button. Because it's live, people. It's the way it works. Here's our question. Which of these threat actors are commonly described as highly centralized enterprises that engage in illegal hacking for profit? This sounds interesting. Which of these threat actors are commonly described as highly centralized enterprises that engage in illegal hacking for profit? Would it be A, hacktivist? Would it be B, script kiddie? Would it be C, nation state? Would it be D, organized crime? Or would it be E, insider? One of these threat actors are commonly described as highly centralized enterprises that engage in illegal hacking for profit. Let's see how we're going to do with this one. Do we know what these are? Threat actors, there's a whole video, whole section of the exam objectives on threat actors. You need to know about threat actors. We're not talking about people making movies. That is not what we're talking about. Threat actors is a completely different thing. This is something you do absolutely need to get an idea about. There are many different people that would like to take things from you, steal your money, get access to your systems, maybe just bring you down so you can't do anything. These are all different threat actors. So we need to understand how they work, what is their motivation, why are they doing what they're doing, what can we do to prevent them from doing what they're doing. That's all part of the Security Plus exam. And you will run into all of the threat actors that are listed there, I assure you. This is not a trick question. Oh, I love it when people say this is a trick question, because that is not offensive at all. Thank you. This is one you do. It is very specific, though. And on your exam, you have to know what you're reading. You have to be able to parse the questions that you're getting, because there are very specific clues in the question. It is not a trick question. It's a very specific question. And I will explain in just a moment why there can only be one possible answer here. So we've got 72% of you that said organized crime. 72%. 16% said hacktivist. I didn't say activist, I said hacktivist. So that is not the same as an activist. It's a hacktivist. 6% said a nation state. And a tie for fourth, 2% said script kiddie and 2% said insider. So what would be the right answer? Well, 73% of you, 3/4 of you said organized crime. Is that really the right answer? Well, yes, it is. That is the right answer. These are people that are professional criminals. They know what they're doing when it comes to crime because it's what they do. They are very motivated by almost always one thing. Really, it's always one thing. It's about money. It's about the money. There's almost always somebody outside of your organization. This isn't somebody on the inside. This is somebody on the outside that's doing this. They are pretty sophisticated too. They're very good at this because they're making money and they can invest that money into hacking you. This is the best bad guys you can buy are available because they got some cash that they can use to make this happen. They call it organized crime because it's very organized. You have a corporate structure. You've got a head guy at the top. He's the guy running everything. You got the guys at the bottom. They're doing other stuff like they're managing the exploits. They're handling the credit card transactions. They're handling the cryptocurrency transactions. They are handling customer support. They're handling hiring new people. They got an HR department, hiring new people. They are absolutely organized. That's where the organized part comes from this. And because they have all this money and this big process, they got plenty of resources to be able to do this. So that's where you have to be concerned about what's going on. But if we look at the possible answers, let's look at our question again first. Our question asked, which of these threat actors are commonly described as highly centralized enterprises that engage in illegal hacking for profit? So we got three things there: highly centralized enterprise, illegal hacking, and profit. So if we look at insiders, someone who's an insider, not really a highly centralized enterprise. And they're not, most of the time, they're not even really doing something for profit. I know we can talk about Office Space and Superman 3, but those are different. Those are the movies. Most of somebody who's in the inside, they're trying to grab data. Sometimes it's for profit, selling data. A lot of the times they're just trying to break things. That's something you'll run into as well. Script kiddies, definitely not highly centralized. We can already throw them out. They're barely centralized. They barely can keep up with what they're doing. Not a good choice. Nation state was the kind of the number 3 on the list. Nation state is highly centralized, not really an enterprise, but highly centralized. So we can kind of give a little bit of slack there. They engage in illegal hacking. Not really, sort of. I guess they do, sure. Yeah, in some cases they absolutely do. Not always. For profit, that's not the motivation of a nation state, is not profit. Nation state is there to disrupt. Sometimes it's profit, but that's not their primary focus. There are cases, as we've seen with North Korea, where we think that perhaps there is profit there. But most of the time when we're talking about hacking from a nation state, their motivation is not profit in most cases. So that doesn't really fit as the best possible answer. And of course, on your exam, you have to find the best possible answer. In fact, on many questions you're going to get in your exam, you could look at these questions and say, oh, maybe 2 or 3 of these could technically be right. That's by design. That's not a trick question, by the way. That's by design. We want you to know the differences between all of these. You need to be able to look at these and determine, of all of these, which one would really be the best. Hacktivist came in number 2. A hacktivist is usually, it might be sort of centralized. I would not describe hacktivism currently as highly centralized, but there is an organization associated with it. Usually it is illegal hacking, but it's not really for profit. That's not their focus. Their focus is to make a statement. It's to bring down an organization or to allocate resources away from you, or take all of your customers away, or do something to hurt you. They're trying to make a political or a socioeconomic statement of some kind. So that's not really the best answer here. The best answer really is organized crime. These are folks that absolutely highly centralized. They are absolutely doing illegal hacking, and the primary focus that they are trying to get through is profit. Profit, 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 profit. That's what they want to do. Yeah, I would imagine some did choose Hacktivist because illegal hacking was in there, but you have to examine everything that's provided to you. Almost all these do illegal hacking. Hacktivists, script kiddies, nation states, organized crime, and insiders all do illegal hacking. Only one is really highly centralized. Only one does it for profit. That's the only real good choice there. And that's why I parsed the question that way, because as I went through the list of all of those actors that were in the exam objectives, and I thought, how can I separate out this one particular one? And there was a few keywords, and that's how it turned out. So if you answered D, organized crime, absolutely correct. Well done. We've got, by the way, I didn't mention this earlier, but if you are watching this for continuing education unit credit, this might be useful to you. Obviously, this would only apply if you have one of your existing certifications, a Security Plus, a Network Plus, or an A Plus, or you have some other thing that you would like to be able to use this for. If you don't have your certification, this doesn't apply to you yet. But if you are watching this either live or on the replay, you're watching it and you'd like to get 1 hour of webinar-based continuing education unit credit, you go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. Make sure you follow these instructions, or I will not send you a CEU, because this means you did really listen to this. So you go to the top or the bottom of the website. There's a Contact Us link. In that Contact Us link, a form pops up. It asks for your name, asks for your email. Make sure they're right, because I'm emailing you back this digitally signed certificate that says, yes, you did watch this. So make sure you do that. Then it asks you to put some information there. All of this I'm reading, so you can put a message in there, but somewhere in that message, you want to put, let's use Hacktivist, since I can't say it right. You want to put somewhere in that message the word Hacktivist, and then I'll know you must have watched this. You must have not only watched this, you heard me explain the entire process from beginning to end of exactly how you should send this to me. If you would also be nice enough to somewhere in there put that this was the January 2018 Security Plus study group that helps me find the information I need to be able to send you back an email that says, here is me certifying that you must have seen this. It's 1 hour, and then I digitally sign it. So you can't change the 1 to a 10. See how that works? So that's why I digitally sign it. So nobody can watch one time and get 10 times the credit. Becomes useful too. Let's do another one for, let's do another question. I've got one here. So this one's kind of a long one. So let's parse this one out, shall we? Let's sit through all of these. You've discovered an unrecognized IP address in your network. And you'd like to remotely identify any services that may be running on this device. I'm going to do a little investigation. Which of the following would provide you with this information? Which one of these would provide you with this information? Would it be netstat? Would it be TCP dump? Would it be ipconfig? Would it be nmap? Would it be netcat? One of those would be the best way to provide you with this information. That'd be useful, wouldn't it? That'd be something to know. Maybe some of you have even done this. You've discovered an unrecognized IP address on the network. You're wondering, what in the world is that device? You would like to figure out what this device does. So let's remotely identify any services that may be running on this device. Which of these would provide you with that information? Indeed, which of these would provide me with this information? This is one that does come in handy. This is a pretty good scenario that I have run into myself in this studio. I'm like, what in the world is that box? I've got a lot of equipment in the studio, just tons of stuff. As you can see by my very messy desk, there's tons of things here. And of course I've got tons. There's a huge rack to my bottom right. There's a huge rack to my bottom left. You can't even see that rack. You can see the audio. It's going up and down right there. I've got another room with equipment on it. There is There's a house that's got equipment in it. And of course, all the other things that a house has. I've got, you connect up these days, you're connecting up your to Ethernet or wireless. You've got your garage doors. You've got air conditioning systems. You've got everything's now connected. So you wonder, I'm looking through my list of IP addresses in the network and wondering, what in the world is that? How can I figure that out? That's what you want to answer here. How would I figure that out? Let's see how we did with this one. How did we do? Well, we're a little torn, aren't we? It is a tie for first. We've got a NetStat. 45% of you said NetStat. 46% of you said Nmap. A virtual tie for number one. Which one would it be? Oh, this is going to be exciting, isn't it? 6% said ifconfig. 1%, only 1% said TCP dump, and only 1% said netcat. So which one would it be? How could we really follow it? Well, how could we remotely identify services that may be running on this device? How could we do it? Well, we would use Nmap. Nmap is the best way to do this. Nmap is super awesome. Nmap, I wrote a book on Nmap. It's no longer updated. The edition really got too old to keep up, so I don't sell it any longer. But Nmap is an amazing piece of software. If you are not familiar with Nmap, you should become very familiar with Nmap from a network administration and security administration perspective. It is profoundly powerful. The name of it implies network mapper. That's really what it's doing. At a very bare minimum, you can perform port scan, see what ports are open on a device. Now, that doesn't necessarily tell you anything about what really may be running on the device. If port 80 is open, it could be a web server. It might not be a web server. It could be something else. Just because a port is open and it's a port we recognize doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be the service that we commonly associate with that particular port. A port number is just a number. It's just an arbitrary number we all chose, but it doesn't mean that someone has to do that. You could run FTP over port 80. See, that's very useful. And you can run Nmap on so many different things. Now, Nmap will also send some very carefully crafted packets to a device to see what kind of response come back. And based on those responses, Nmap is able to provide you with information on what operating system may be running on that device without actually authenticating into that particular device. Just sending it some network traffic and getting some responses back. It's remarkable. It is like magic in how it operates, and it knows a lot about how different operating systems will respond back to certain kinds of packets. So if you ever wonder, what operating system is that? You can tell Nmap, perform an operating system scan on that. Don't just find the open ports, but just tell me what you think the operating system is. It's scary how good it is. And not just scary on how good it is with operating system scanning, it will scan those open ports to tell you what service is really hiding behind those open ports. What service is really running on those open port numbers? I know port 80 is open, but is it really a web server? Is somebody running something else on that particular open port? What is it? And it will tell you. And it won't even use the app. It will not authenticate. It won't use the particular service that's running on that port. It simply sends some specially crafted packets to see what kind of answers come back. And based on those answers, it's able to determine exactly what application is running there. And it knows a lot of applications that it can tell you about. On top of that, there are tons of scripts that extend the capabilities of Nmap using Lua, which is a scripting language. And you can perform vulnerability scans. You can check for malware that may be installed on a device. It is remarkable what you're able to do. Nmap can also be dangerous. Performing these types of scans could potentially cause a denial of service or cause a machine to completely flake out, crash, or even reboot. I have completely rebooted machines in my studio here by simply running what I know to be a very simple Nmap scan. And I think, how could that scan have caused that device to reboot? And yes, it does. And this is somebody who I know Nmap at a packet level. I looked at every scan. I mapped out every type of scan that worked and how it operated. I know exactly the packets go back and forth. I took packet captures and documented everything in my book. It's remarkable what you can break with Nmap. So be very careful when using Nmap. That's a pretty important thing to keep in mind too. You don't want to be in a situation where you're going to run into a problem there. So those of you that did look at these particular answers that are here, obviously Nmap, which is D, is our correct answer. So that's why whenever you start looking at all of these, Nmap is really the right one. People in the chat room, Brian said, my company, the IT people get really angry when I use Nmap. I bet they do. Do not run Nmap on a network where you do not have permission. You are asking for trouble. And it wasn't Nmap, but I had somebody run a vulnerability scan on a network, on a corporate network where I was working, and they got shown the door. Happened to be someone in who was a contractor. They weren't an employee, and then actually they brought down our PBX. They brought down our voice switch, and this was a call center, and they crashed the voice switch by running a vulnerability scan. So he was shown the door. That didn't work out so well. So be very careful about running scans. Now, why wouldn't it be Netstat? 48% of us said Netstat. If you go to your machine, you go to a command prompt, and you run Netstat, it will tell you all of the things that your machine is communicating to and all of the services that your machine is using. It might even show you the executables that are used to send this information out of your computer. But it's about your computer. This is an unrecognized IP address on our network. We have no idea how this would work. So this is a situation where you do run into these challenges whenever you start trying to find these things. It's just your machine the Netstat's going to run on. It's not another machine. Here, it's a remote device. I want to be able to remotely identify any services that may be running. Netstat really is the right answer. So that's what we want with this. In the chat room, people are saying, hey, but in my Security Plus note, it says vulnerability scans are less likely to interrupt running production environments. Relative to a vulnerability scan, relative to somebody who's performing an exploit. Vulnerability scans don't generally perform a penetration test. And that particular line, if you go back to the video, is describing the difference between a penetration test and a vulnerability scan. A penetration test is actively exploiting vulnerabilities. And that is a much higher percentage of blowing up a machine, of making it unusable than running a vulnerability scan. But as I just mentioned, you can run vulnerability scans and really create some significant problems. Don't do that against that. It's not funny against my story. That was my story. That's exactly my story. Is vulnerability scans can absolutely interrupt running production environments, in some cases extensively. So make sure you're aware of that. Just don't do a vulnerability scan. You're going to be fine whenever you go through all those pieces. All of this information, by the way, everything you've seen today, all of the questions, all of the details, they are all in the CompTIA exam objectives. If you don't have the CompTIA exam objectives, get them right now. Make sure you have them. Just go to the Google machine, type in CompTIA exam objectives. You can also go to professormesser.com/objectives. It will redirect you to the CompTIA website. This should be the first thing you go through before you start studying. Make sure you get the version of the objectives for the exam you're going to take. Don't study from the 401 objectives and go take the 501 exam. You will fail. Do not study from the 501 exam objectives and go take the 401 exam. You will fail. You will fail bigly. You will fail massively. Those are two very different exams. In fact, it was remarkable how much information has changed between the 401 exam and the 501 exam. It's like it's a different certification test. They both say Security Plus, but they are very different in their content. Probably 50% of the content has changed. For an exam update, that is extensive. So do not do that. Make sure you get the exam objectives for you. This is a great checklist to go through. So make sure that you use this checklist. If you can check off everything on your exam objectives, you're ready to take the exam. For the people that are wondering, why is that? For those pieces and having that there. About 50% of this is different, 50% isn't. So you could study from some of this, but why would you study from one version of the exam and then try to figure out what's different? Don't do that either. These days, almost there's books now out for the 501. I finished recording all of my videos for the 501. I'm in edit mode now. So my primary production of shooting, which is really the most arduous part of my exam creation, done. So my course is now, I'm rolling out videos. After we're done here, I'm editing. Tomorrow, I'm editing. Friday, I'm editing. Saturday, I'm editing. Sunday, I'm editing. That's all I do now until those are done. So we should have this up by the end of January. So there's plenty of 501 books out there. There's plenty of 501 videos now available. Plenty of that to have those there and those pieces. So those exam objectives, make sure you get them. They're profoundly powerful. They will tell you what you need to know before you walk into the exam and get all of those. Can you believe we've gone through an hour of this? Me either. How's that work? I get 2 weeks off in January, and then on February the 7th is my A+ study group. On February the 14th is a wonderful Valentine's Day, and I always like to spend my Valentine's Day doing a Network Plus study group. And then on the 21st of February, we'll do another one of these for Security Plus study group. So I do a lot of these. If you're wondering, if you're watching this on the replay and we're way past January and February and you're wondering, when's the next one of these going to be? Just go to calendar. It's on my website, professormesser.com/calendar. There's also an event calendar list link at the top of the page. Let's do another hour of this, though. Let's do some phone calls. There's other questions that have popped up in the chat room. Stick around. I've got plenty more we're going to talk about. Don't forget about my Security Plus course notes. They keep the lights on, and I think they might help you as well for all of these. Be nice if we could see that slide. There it is. You might also want to go to YouTube. I'm putting tons of new videos out now for Security Plus on YouTube right now. If you've ever wanted to subscribe to something and get updates, now would be the time. Go to professormesser.com/YouTube. You can subscribe there. Mash that button, and there's the little bell there. If you click the bell, then you'll actually be informed when I put the new videos out. And hopefully I'll get some out today. They'll be out tomorrow. They'll be out the next day, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Follow what we do on Twitter, professormesser.com/Twitter, professormesser.com/Facebook, just whatever third-party website, professormesser.com/Instagram, professormesser.com/LinkedIn, although I haven't logged into LinkedIn in a long, long time. Professormesser.com, just figure out Google+. There's another one. So I try to add some new ones in there. Don't forget about the discount vouchers, professormesser.com/vouchers. And although we didn't get to talk about the Security Plus labs at GTS Learning, they have 501 labs available. And I updated the link to the 501 labs, professormesser.com/seclabs. That might be something useful too, to have that there. Some might want to look through those, because those include a book. They include questions and answers. They include the live labs you can go through. That's plenty of good stuff there. That might be worth looking at professormesser.com/seclabs. I want to thank you for joining us in this first hour. Stick around for the second hour, open phone lines. I've got questions coming in the chat room, plenty to talk about, and we'll see you next time on the Security Plus Study Group. My. You can tell it's cold and dry because of my throat. Okay, in the chat room, what's the difference between course notebook PDF and just the PDF? One is a PDF, and one is the PDF and a printed version of the PDF. That's the difference. The content's exactly the same. Exactly the same thing. But I thought if you're buying the physical book, you're having to pay extra money because it's printed. I might as well throw in the digital version too, so you can get both. So that's why it's included with both when you get the printed version. Is it snowing in New Hampshire? That's cold up there. 18 in Austin. I need to get back to Austin, get some barbecue. Not that I was ever able to get the barbecue. They ever rebuild after the fire? That's one of those where you go to Austin, you're definitely going to be getting barbecue. Whenever I dealt with that, of like, Franklin's had a fire. What's going to happen? That was important. It was felt here in Florida the day of the fire. I think he's back and running though. Yes, they rebuilt. It's important. Franklin keeps all that running. He's got great videos on YouTube, by the way. If you ever wanted to make your own barbecue, you wanted to grill your own ribs, his videos on YouTube are amazing. Just remarkable. So that's my little tidbit for you. We need to get the phone lines up and running. Questions in the chat room. People are asking, do I have plans for the CompTIA Cybersecurity Analyst Plus, the CSA Plus? I do not currently have plans for that. I've been keeping my eye on it. It's been one of these things where I'm waiting for people to embrace it. I'm waiting for people to want to take it. And we haven't quite hit that point yet for whatever reason. It's been well over a year. I don't know why. Am I missing my call-in thing? I got to get this all set up. I don't have anyone here in the studio to do these things for me. So I am now hosting a show. We need to get the phone lines up and running.
You did not enter a show number.
I did not.
Goodbye.
Oh, well, that's abrupt. That's not nice. They don't mess around there. Type the number in and let's get things going. Hurry up. I get it. I understand. Okay. I got to figure out where my keypad is, and then we're going to type in some numbers, and then it's going to say,
enter your 6-digit PIN number.
That's right. And I'm going to type that in. And what happens after that?
Welcome.
That's what happens after that. So now we got phone lines open. Now we can do stuff. There's the phone number. If you would like to call in, you're more than welcome to. I will be also answering questions from the chat room, but you can call in as well. The toll-free number in the continental United States is 855-785-7545. You can also call in toll-free, Skype-free anywhere in the world. You put a +1 on the front of that from Skype and go to +1 855-785-RJ45, and that will get you here for those. It's kind of a nice thing to have there. So you can call in, and I'll be taking the phone lines just a moment to follow up on that question about the cybersecurity analyst. Have not seen the groundswell of activity that I would like to see with CSA Plus. It takes months to build, to plan, to build, and to shoot and to publish a training course. It takes that regardless of what training course it happens to be. This could be the CSA Plus. It could be a Cisco course. It could be a VMware course. It could be a Microsoft course. They take months to do. So that is why I really have to think about what would give people the biggest bang for their buck. What could hit the most number of people and help the most number of people with their studies? So I have to look at that. CSA Plus just doesn't have quite it never got quite the groundswell people doing it that I was looking for yet. They've recently added it to the list of certifications that can be used for the federal government. So I was hoping for a little uptick. So I'm continuing to watch it. Things change day to day with me. I say no today, it could be yes tomorrow. So I never know. Right now, as we're sitting here, no plans for CSA Plus, sorry. No plans for CISSP either. That's kind of an odd one too. That's a very niche certification, CISSP. What is the best textbook to buy for the SY0501? I like the ones from GTS Learning because I used those to help create my videos. They are very specific. They're to the point. They don't mess around with, let's talk about the history of encryption. First, people banged rocks together. Nobody wants that. We're trying to get a certification done here. So they go right to the point. There are other books out there like that. My recommendation would be to check out Amazon, see what people are saying about them. I don't have the resources to read through a lot of different textbooks. So I just haven't. I've been heads down. Every day I'm in the studio shooting video, huge blocks of it. I'm editing video. I'm posting it online. And when at the end of the day, I'm vegged out. I just want to go in the division and, grab my pistol and shoot things. So that's what I do. I grab the Xbox controller and I try to get out the frustration, kind of relax a little bit, and then I just rewind and we do it all again the next day. That's how it works. Thanks for the callers are here. Let me get to the phone lines really quick. Could the 501 exam be passed only using my course notes and YouTube videos? Maybe, but why would you do that? Why would you use any single resource for something as important as a industry certification exam? grab as many things as you can to study from. Why would you grab anybody's single thing? I just have this one thing. Now let's go take an exam that's going to affect my life. Probably not what you should do. There are people that do that. Makes me cringe a little bit when that happens. But there are people that do that. Let's go to the phone lines. The 443 area code. Are you there, caller? Hey, what are you calling from? Hi, caller. Oh, we're on speaker apparently. Let's see if the caller picks up with the 443 area code. Caller, are you there? Are you there? He tried to pick. Oh, hey, what's your name?
Hi, this is Ali from Maryland. How you doing, sir?
Welcome, Ali. Thank you for calling. What can we do for you, sir?
My question is about, well, I'm on a track. I did A+, Network+, and my plan is to complete Security Plus and MCSA.
Nice.
Windows Server 2016.
Nice.
And I'm doing well. I'm studying well, and your show is helping a lot. I'm on this track, but something else has popped up, and I was wondering if it's wise to do that as well. It's called the Google IT Support Certification. It's brand new.
It is.
And I was just wondering, yes, if it's worth the time and effort to switch or add it to my plan, which is already going quite well. I'm almost ready for the 70740 exam.
Nice.
So I was just wondering if I should just continue or should I take a gander at the Google as well. For somebody who already has the Plus Network, it seems a little basic, but I was just wondering what your opinion would be on that.
For those of you not aware of this, and Ali, thank you for bringing this up because this is something that was announced, I think, yesterday. So this is all brand new information. It's the Google IT Support Professional Certificate. Google has decided to jump into the certificate realm, and they have done it into something that is a very broad certificate that they've created. The story behind it is they say that we are giving all of our IT people internally, we take them through this training program. And what we're going to do is now take you through the same training program we use for our IT people. And it's a very broad program. Interestingly enough, you may be aware that Google has access to perhaps one of the the largest video streaming service in the world since they own YouTube. This isn't on YouTube. They're not planning to put it on YouTube. This is not even part of YouTube. They're actually using Coursera to offer this particular course. Yeah, there's something going on here. We don't have the whole story yet on their business reason for doing this, but Google doesn't do things for free. Google does things because they're a public company. They have stockholders. This may be their first foray into really expanding into, may have suddenly realized, hey, there's a market here for this. The course itself is more than just a replacement for A+. It's more than, in fact, it doesn't actually replace A+. It doesn't actually replace Network+. It doesn't even get into really security type details. It consists of, I think, 6 different courses. One is a fundamental course, and I went through all of the course details to kind of get more information about the course. There's not a lot out there. Their exam objectives, they kind of take you through each week and what they are. What is IT? What does an IT support specialist do? We have how to count in binary. We can read about logic gates. So you can see it's all over the place. They talk about, there's programming in here. They talk about learning different, I think Ruby is in here, of all things, to learn as an IT person. You're gonna start with Ruby? I mean, Ruby's great and all, but why wouldn't you start with Python? There's some interesting decisions they made about this. How to assemble a computer, some good stuff in here. How to pick a motherboard, how to pick storage, how to put a computer together. I love that. But that's just the first course. Then they've got other courses in here that go through. The second one is the bits and bytes of computer networking, where they talk about describing computer networks in the terms of a 5-layer model. You know, the model that the industry doesn't use. Why would you not do it in the 7-layer OSI model that everyone in the world uses? Well, because they're Google. They're not a networking company. I get it. The third one is operating systems and you, becoming a power user. Pretty good. They got Linux in here. They got Windows, but not a lot of detail. They talk about using Linux at a graphical display, which not quite exactly what you would expect, but it's an intro, right? It gets you into the things. The other course, system administration, IT infrastructure services, some good stuff in here. How to keep things running, Open LDAP, Active Directory, obviously things they use in Google. IT automation is an entire course. This is where they start talking about programming using Ruby, using Git. Now we're going a little bit farther outside the scope of traditional IT. Now we're sort of trying to blend in the operational and the programming side of it, which is what most big companies are trying to do right now, is make their operations people more knowledgeable on how to do development with DevOps. So I get it. I haven't bought into that yet, but I get it. The last one, IT security, defense against the digital dark arts. It's good marketing, people, but it's really talking about encryption. And that's the course. So those are all the courses. They're not free. They're $49 a month to go through these. They will give the first 10,000 people access for free, and then that's it. They're sort of priming the pump, trying to get people excited about it, get employers asking about it. Really, it's for Google. If they can get people showing up for Google that have this certification, I think you might have a leg up if you're going to be interviewing at Google. I think you most definitely would. Other places, I don't know that anybody's even heard of this yet other than me and you. You know, it's brand new. So this is like anything else in my world, though. I kind of watch it, kind of see what it does. Google's not going to do this for free. They're going to make money from it. So what are they going to do with it? Is it something that's going to be long-term? Are they going to roll out other courses? I have so many questions. So my qualified answer to you is I have no idea what's coming next on this. I would ask the people that you will be interviewing with in your particular neck of the woods. If you're in Maryland, it's a lot of federal government, a lot of people asking for the certifications that are listed on the Department of Defense list. And this is not on that DoD list right now. Probably wouldn't even appear to be that way in you'd have to wait a year to finally get added to that list, like happened with CSA Plus. So think about what the people that are looking at certifications from you are wanting to get from you. I think the path that you laid out, that you just told us at the beginning, that's a really good path. And it kind of, you get a little bit of everything. You're getting a little bit of networking, you get a little bit of Microsoft, especially Microsoft Server. You're well positioned at that point. I say keep going, but keep an eye on Google and see what happens with that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for helping me with that. It was sort of confusing, but I think I'll stick to the tried and tested. You know, so I think it trumps the Google by far.
You know, for people that are in California or in one of the large places where Google is hiring, it may be worth looking at a little bit closer and thinking about how it's going to go through. They think it's going to probably take somebody a year, 8 to 12 months to go through all of these courses. So this is not something people are going to easily slide into and be done with like you can do with a lot of other certifications. But if you're interviewing for Google, it might be something to consider. It's we will all be watching. So ask me again in 3 months. We'll see where we are.
Okay. In the meantime, I'll continue with my commitment and just keep an eye on this. And thank you for your support.
Thanks, Ali. Good luck with that. Take care.
Have a good one.
That's an interesting one. You know, I knew somebody would be asking about the first call. Ali wants to know right out of the gate, what in the world's Google doing? I'm glad I spent some time going through that this morning. And I went through details of every course. What are they doing? I want to know, of course. I'm really interested. What are they doing? What's happening there? Oh, let's see. Where are they putting it on YouTube? They're not. Why is that? Because they have stockholders. That's why, of course. Back to the phone lines. Thank you for holding for so long. 571 area code. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Abby, and I'm calling from Virginia.
Hi, Abby. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you today?
Yes, I have some certifications here and there, CH. I have a couple, but I'm into information assurance.
Okay.
So I'm trying to be part of. I've worked as a cybersecurity analyst in the past, and I really want the certification just to be sure. So the Security Plus, I've been watching your videos, but not really into it. So this would be my first time that I would actually sit through the video, the live course. So how am I going to proceed to what do I need to get myself together to take this test?
Well, you've got some background in the security industry, so that part is a pretty valuable thing to have. Whenever we talk about hiring someone in security, first, there are a lot of job openings right now in security, so you're in a good market for finding these things. I would say even today, and this has been this way for a very long time, but kind of the gold standard in security for certifications is the CISSP. But that's also a certification that requires 5 years of experience in the industry, doing security full time. It has extensive things you have to go through. It's a very arduous test in many ways. It's not a simple thing to obtain. So a lot of people will get some of the precursors to that. They'll get Security Plus. And of course, the ISC Squared has other exams that don't, rare certifications that don't require 5 years. And they, of course, recommend you get those. There's training you can get from SANS for security training. And of course, many security companies like Checkpoint, Palo Alto Networks, they both make firewalls. They both have their same they both have their own security certifications that are specific to their product line. And that helps if you're walking into a job offer or job interview and they say, we're looking for somebody who really knows Checkpoint, and you have the Checkpoint certification, that might help you. Or you're walking in somebody that says, we got a lot of Palo Alto Networks firewalls, and you say, oh, I have the Palo Alto Network certification. Those types of things can be very valuable. In security, once you get past the big certs, it gets very niche, and you find that a lot of people they'll work towards their CISSP, but ultimately they need certifications from Cisco, from Checkpoint, from VMware, from all of these other places that do security, so that they can kind of not just take care and understand the security fundamentals, but also handle the detailed tasks that are required for the equipment they happen to be using.
Okay.
But
Thank you so much.
you're in a good place though, since you have this background in security. Definitely lean on some of these security certifications. Go to the Security Plus, lean on and look towards the plans of getting some of these larger certifications like the CISSP, because ultimately, once you have that one, people recognize, okay, you've been doing this a while, you understand the fundamentals, let's see what else you got. And that can really get you in a lot of doors.
Great. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Thanks for calling, Abby. That's can really help you too. If you're getting into looking at what your cert is, you should be planning a whole strategy, not just what you're doing now, but where you're going with it. Let's go to the 561 area code. Thank you, caller, for holding for so long. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Professor Messer. This is Ed calling from sunny Miami Lakes.
Welcome, Ed. I miss Miami Lakes. I miss the Main Street there. There used to be a great bakery there. It's not there anymore. But obviously, my Mrs. Professor Messer grew up just down the street, right next to Hialeah High School there. So that's an area I lived in quite a long time. So thanks for calling. What can we do for you, Ed?
Well, my question's regarding virtualization and network architecture.
Me too.
And here's the thing. Let's say you're a system administrator, you're coming into a new company, and their network is aging, and they have a budget, a reduced budget.
Sounds normal.
And they want to, they want to do some upgrades. So you decide to go to the route of virtualization, and you buy this big server, and you have virtual servers inside of it with virtual routers,
sure,
and virtual firewalls, and virtual switches in there.
Yep.
But when you do that, don't you create a single point of failure?
There are always places where you are creating single points of failure. And for virtualization, it's no different. And just as you've seen, if you bought one of these boxes and put all these virtual machines on it and created a bunch of virtual routers and virtual switches inside of it, maybe added some virtual firewalls, and you've really created sort of a company in a box right there. You're absolutely right. If somebody trips over the power cord, your company goes down. If it catches on fire, your whole company just literally has just gone up in flames. You're absolutely correct. Now, fortunately, like most things in IT, in the world of IT, there are always an option to create some type of redundancy. And VMware is the same type of thing. VMware has a method for creating redundancy. Of course, you've got backups of all these virtual machines. You've got backups of all these virtual switches and virtual routers and virtual firewalls that you've created, because even though they're virtualized, they still exist as a file. And generally, it's a file or a grouping of files that defines that particular virtual world that you've created. So if there's a file, you can, of course, back up the file. Maybe you can keep a backup of that file on another machine that's there running and waiting. Maybe it's constantly updated. As things change on one virtual machine, it also takes all of those changes and copies it over to the backup virtual machine. And maybe it's a backup, the physical device. Instead of buying one physical device, maybe you've bought two of them, so that if you lose the first one, the second one is available. There's also methods within VMware where they can move machines, virtual machines, from one physical device to another without anybody knowing behind the scenes that move is taking place. So that if one machine gets very busy, they can move it off to some place that's not very busy and keep everybody up and running, and the IP addresses didn't change and nothing modified, and the clients had no idea things were moved around, but you literally just moved it from one country to another. The capabilities for VMware to be very elastic and redundant are extensive and varied and many. But it does take a bit of diving into all of the different options, because not only do you have the options for maintaining the redundancy of the virtual world, there are also many type of redundant networking protocols that you have to consider. And how are you going to build your network in a way that is able to recover from an outage like that and make it resilient enough to be able to fail over very quickly without anybody knowing? It's not an answer I can give you on a phone line. There are many different things we can go through. That's a big meeting that everybody gets to sit in and talk about the level of redundancy, how much money we want to pay for that redundancy, because redundancy comes at a cost always. There's a financial cost. There's other costs as well. But there are ways to do it. So even if you're planning to make everything virtualized, make sure also when you're planning that you're planning to also make it redundant at the same time, and you're going to be just fine.
So basically what you're saying is that it would be helpful to have an additional server there as a backup, just in case the one server fails, you have a failover.
That at the most basic level, that's a fundamental of a redundant environment. I used to work at a place whenever you would put in a purchase for one device, there would always be a requirement to buy a second one to put at the hot spare site. Because whenever you bought one, there needs to be a copy of that somewhere else. That helps now a little bit when you buy one virtualized platform and you buy this one monster server. Yeah, you're going to need to buy another monster server to go along with it so that you got a failover.
And so when we're talking physical environment, we're talking hardware. And when we're talking virtual, we're talking software. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, there's always a hardware component to virtualization that you may not see because you really split the hardware up into tiny little pieces. But of course, there's underlying hardware that is all of this that's working behind the scenes.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you very much for taking my call.
Thanks, Ed. Appreciate the call. That's whenever you start looking at virtualization, that's why the VMware has such extensive certifications dealing with the architecture of these systems, because there's so many different ways you can do it. And it may be that you can do all of your redundancy between a couple of boxes and you're maintaining the redundancy, but it has to go somewhere, right? Your software has to end up somewhere. I've got questions coming in the chat room, but very quickly, let's go to the phone lines, the +919 out there. Caller, are you there? What's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name is Bhupin. I'm calling from India.
Oh, welcome. What can we do for you today?
Actually, I'm in a networking field from last 5 years. So actually, I'm working in Red Hat community. So my question actually is, I have my own repository. I don't want to actually buy a separate server for that repository. I just want to upload my own repository so everybody can download it on a very low kind of internet speed.
Is there a particular overriding requirement you have to provide this access? And what is the platform you're going to provide the repository on?
Access and Fedora operating system.
So I think whenever anybody starts getting into details about where you're going to put this content and how you're going to provide permissions and rights and access for it, becomes a little bit more of a more challenging issue. Some people will use, obviously the easy ones are Git and being able to put things out publicly that way. I have a lot of people that will put everything out on Amazon, put it in their S3 cloud, and assign rights and permissions based on that. They've got a nice set of APIs you can use for that as well. In fact, if you go to my website and you were to buy my course notes, you're really downloading the course notes from Amazon. It's authenticating you, given your login rights to my website, and that's where you're pulling those down from. And most cloud-based services allow you to do that as well. That might be an option too.
But my actual question is that I don't want to buy a server. How can I improve my server without buying any kind of servers?
That becomes a little bit more of a challenge. It's difficult to find something that's absolutely free. Amazon does have some options, though. If you're only using a certain amount of bandwidth or a certain amount of storage, they have some options that are effectively free. And there are others out there that might give you some storage. But once you get to a certain point with the size of the repository, almost everybody has it set up so that you would have to at least pay for either the amount of space you're using, or if it's on your own server, you could run your own software, and there may also be costs associated with bandwidths or with storage on that as well. But you'd have to look at everybody's offering, because everybody's a little bit different on how they roll out the different pricing mechanisms.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks for calling.
Thank you so much, Professor.
You're very welcome. It's one where I used to be on a server that was a flat fee. Every month, here's the flat fee. But then you get to a point where there's so much traffic, they say, we can't do your flat fee anymore. You're now at the next tier. You're going to have to pay for amount of data in and out. So that's sort of where I am today. So it really just depends on how much you're doing is going to depend on what type of contract you'll be able to get. To the 786 area code. Caller, are you there? What's your name?
Hi, good morning, Professor. My name is Wakar, and I'm calling you from Los Angeles.
Welcome. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Okay, so my question, I was watching the whole video from before. It's kind of off topic, but
sure.
So I took the certification route because I just couldn't afford college anymore. Especially living here in LA, it's quite expensive.
I get that.
And yeah, it's cost of living is high. And the reason why I moved to LA was because of the tech. All these startups are based here.
Yep.
And then I just wanted to situate myself where, I could just go ahead with my career.
It's a good market.
So somebody like me who cannot, I finished my community college, but I am taking a break to, start school again, because I hear that these companies reimburse tuition and stuff. So I was just, I passed my Network Plus, and I'm doing the security 501, and I called last week as well, asking you about the videos when you were uploading them. And so I mean, is this the right way to go, getting certified and then getting some kind of skill and then get a job somewhere and then, start off?
I wish I could tell you there is a right way to go and a wrong way to go, but there isn't. There's no single way to go that makes sense for everybody. I have worked with people in my professional career that were extremely formally educated at some of the best schools and colleges and universities in the world, and that got masters and doctorates, and they were extremely successful for the things that they wanted to do. I also worked with people that had no formal degree from a four-year college and managed to be millionaires doing what they were doing. So that really, whenever you start trying to wrap your head around this, especially in what I do, which is create these certification programs, what is the proper answer when somebody says, should I go get a 4-year degree? And do I say, yes, you should get a 4-year degree because a lot of people like a 4-year degree? Or do I say no because I've worked with plenty of people who didn't have a 4-year degree and yet were very successful? So there's not any single answer I can give you, but I will tell you that it's really kind of a grouping of things that make a big difference when you're trying to get into the industry and then you're trying to move up. The first step is getting in the door. When you get your first technical job, it is a springboard to anything else you would like to do in IT. So that's really the most important thing, is that first job, so that you have some street cred, you have something you can show people that is practical experience in information technology. But now you run into that scenario that you've probably thought about, which is, I've got maybe my AA degree, maybe I even don't have that. I've gathered some certifications. I don't have any practical experience, but when people want to hire me, they're looking for experience, but I can't have experience until I get hired. So it's this catch-22. But this is kind of the catch-22 that's been around forever from that perspective. And I may have even mentioned this to you on a previous study group, which is, don't forget about knowing these people and finding out more about these companies and who's hiring before you ever go out on an interview. And one of the best ways to do that is to meet them in person and talk with them at some of these industry events. A good example is a Microsoft user group. At the Microsoft user group, you're going to find all the Microsoft administrators at all of the big companies in your area. And in the Los Angeles area, there's a lot of them. In fact, there may be even more than one Microsoft user group because it's such a very large geography. There may be different user groups in the north, the south, the east, and the west. You just never know how they're going to separate them out. But the people that are there are the ones that are hiring for Microsoft administrators. They're also the people that know the other openings in their area at their help desk, for their network team, for the security people, for the database people in the data center. They know the projects that are going on right now. They know they're going to be needing to hire more people to do a particular thing. The more you know those people before you walk into an interview with that company, the better place you're going to be. And I will also tell you, in the industry with IT, it's a very regionalized industry. You get to know the people in your region, and those are just people you'll know throughout your entire career. You know where they're going. You know what jobs they're going to. You know, oh, did he leave that company? Where did he end up? Oh, he's over there now. It's even easier to track this these days with LinkedIn. And if you don't have a LinkedIn account, make sure you get one pronto before going through this process so you can link in with all these people you're finding. So you'll know where they're going and what they're doing. The key is getting to know them, letting them know you're in the market, finding out what they're looking for. Ask them, oh, I'm looking for a job to get started. I really like your company. What do you guys need for somebody to get in the door? Are you looking for help desk people? What type of knowledge do they need? Do you prefer them having a college degree? Are there certifications you're looking for? Those are the things that make a difference, is learning that information before you walk in. I think I mentioned also in another user group, throughout my IT career, I probably had 10 to 12, maybe even 15 different jobs, sometimes different titles within the same company, but different jobs that I went to. The first job I ever got in IT, I didn't know anybody that worked there. To this day, I have no idea why they hired me, but they did. Probably because I was the only one that would do the job. It was kind of grunty. It was me driving around and delivering printer cables and installing hard drives, and doing that in South Florida. And then every job I got after that in my career, I knew somebody who worked there. And it really made a difference, because people, if they know you, there's a trust associated with that. Oh yeah, I met him at the user group meeting. I know exactly who that is. He seemed very knowledgeable in Microsoft content. Let's see if he'd be interested in doing this job. We can give him a shot. Those things really, really do make a difference. So if you don't have a formal, have any type of formal experience, that can give you a little bit more of an advantage. Getting certifications gives you a little more of an advantage. And yes, having a formal degree does give you an advantage when you're in front of somebody who's hiring. Whether you're able to have all of those particular skills and attributes, or whether you have some of them, you're going to have to compensate if you're missing any of those by adding more on to the other pieces. So hopefully that's giving you some ideas of things you can do to make yourself the best possible person when you walk into that interview, so that you've got a leg up on some of the other people who are coming in to interview behind you.
Yeah, I actually am part of a lot of meetup groups here in LA.
Fabulous.
I go and talk to them, and they have headhunters over there. There's a really large OWASP group here in Culver City that
Nice.
I go to every month. Yes, and it's just that sometimes I just feel like, even if they ask me, I mean, I can't just outright tell them, hey, I can't afford college, But at the same time, I want to be able to say, hey, I'm certified. I have Network Plus, I have Security Plus. I'm probably going to get the CSA. So, but sometimes it just, it gets to me like, okay, I don't have college. Is it going to hold me back? So that's why I was just, curious to ask somebody who has experience, because I have friends in Virginia who just got their AA, and they are somebody's an incident handler at a company, or somebody's into somewhere in security. And so that just, begs me to ask the question, like, okay, how important is getting college? I understand college has its own importance, but I mean, I just really can't afford it right now.
And you of course need to have a good answer to that question. When somebody says, hey, I was looking at your resume here, it doesn't seem to have a college on it. What's that about? And you need to have a good answer for that. And it's not necessarily one that says, I can't afford it. But one of the things you might want to say is, well, college is expensive. I was concerned about having a huge amount of debt. So instead of following a formal 4-year education, instead I wanted to focus on understanding what people like you needed to have somebody with skills when they walked in the door. And I've been studying those skills. That's a perfectly valid answer, because everybody knows how expensive college is. Everybody knows those pieces. But I will tell you, I mentioned earlier in this conversation, the person I worked with who became a millionaire in information technology and had no formal 4-year degree. But even after he became a millionaire, we were talking, he says, I wonder if I should go back and get my degree. Was kind of eating at him that I never really got that 4-year degree. And other people I work with have a 4-year degree. And I had to grab him, by the shoulders, at least figuratively, and say, are you mad? Have you lost your mind? You're extremely financially successful, in a very good position in IT. There's nothing college is going to be able to give you at this point. I often describe college as you getting a formal certification from people that say that you're trainable, because that's kind of what it is. I got a degree in business management that I'm not even really using much. I sort of use parts of it now that I have my own business, but when I was working in IT, there was very little of my formal 4-year training that prepared me for overnights dealing with recovering from a backup. 4-year degrees, for some reason, don't teach you anything practical that you need to know when you walk in the door at a lot of these jobs, especially when it comes to IT. 4-year colleges, for the vast majority, this isn't for all of them, I'm not talking globally, but the vast majority of our traditional university systems still have no idea what IT is about. They haven't figured it out yet. They think they should send you through programming classes. I did no programming ever. When I was I was doing networking and I was doing security. We don't do programming. That's computer science. Well, we thought that's what we do with computers. It's a computer and you program it. So let's train you on that. They have no idea. They have no clue. So if you're going to be a doctor, of course you should go get a formal degree. If you're going into some type of psychiatry, yes, you should go get a formal degree. There's important things you need to learn. For IT, a lot of places have not figured this out yet. And IT people know this too. Don't think they don't. I know they're asking for a 4-year degree, but don't be afraid to to put your resume in for those jobs as well with all of the other things that you've done. Meet some people, have a good home lab, run through some different scenarios, work with some of today's technologies, install some of the VMware, get the Microsoft boxes running, connect them all together, set up your VPNs, and walk in the door in the resume and say, oh, I can do exactly that. Let me show you how I've done it in the past.
Right, but here's the thing. Last thing I'm going to say. I'm not going to take up your time. I have a friend that works in Dubai, and he told me to get a offensive security certification, and that requires some kind of background knowledge in programming.
Yeah, well, if you want to go into offensive security, which is it is more of a programming type role, then yeah, you would need to know some programming as it's associated with that. But as I've also mentioned in the past on these study groups, the number of jobs available to do penetration testing, which is really what that is, to do pen testing, that is nothing. That's an inconsequential number of jobs available in IT. And it's an inconsequential number of jobs available in security. Are there jobs out there for that? Of course. There is a need to have people that are very knowledgeable at creating code that can break into systems. But I got to tell you, it's nothing broad dealing with that's not IT security at all. In fact, if you're in IT security, you probably will never do anything like that ever because you don't need to. You're dealing every day with making sure firewalls are configured properly, that they're redundant, that they're able to talk to your internal routers, that you have VPN concentrators set up, that you're managing your certificates properly, that you've got logging sent to your SIM, that your SIM is creating the proper reports, that you're able to do audits on everybody who's coming in through your Microsoft, that you're setting up your multi-factor authentication properly, and on and on and on. And none of it has anything to do with pen testing. Pen testing sounds really good, though. It's very sexy. Everybody wants to pen test. There's not a lot of jobs for that. You're going to be doing other stuff. But there's plenty of opportunities out there for IT and IT security that have zero to do with programming. Programming is its own little world that has nothing to do with IT. It is computer science. There's an effort to overlap a little bit of it. Those people are wrong. No, they're not wrong. I see where they're going with that, but that's not the world we all live in. That's where management would like us to go. Wouldn't it be great if everybody who worked in security could program? It would be great. And I would like free cake, and I wish there were unicorns. That's kind of where I look at that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and you rock. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the call. I think that would be fabulous. I wish it would rain gold from the sky. It'd be fantastic. I know. No, there aren't unicorns. What happened there? Quickly in the chat room, saw one go by. Blah, blah, blah. Question, something I want to answer real quick. So it was a quick one. All right. Oh, I have heard that the 501 exam requires some programming language knowledge. Since I just spoke of this, nowhere in the exam objectives does it say anything about programming knowledge. That's your answer. I did not notice any details of this in your 501 courseware videos. Absolutely not, because it's not in the exam objectives. Do not go outside the scope of the exam objectives. You're wasting your time. Do not do that. Not the way it works. Back to the phones. 917 area code. Are you there? Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Andy from India.
Hey, thanks for calling, Andy. What can we do for you?
Yeah. First of all, let me ask you a question. Which search engine do you use?
Which search engine do I use? Most of the time, it's the Google.
Yeah. Google, yeah. So can you please tell me about the Google server, how they work, and what the mechanism behind the servers? Why are they are so fast? I mean, they are reliable. You can get any search engine in an instant.
I know, it's crazy.
Can you please tell me more about that?
Google doesn't share a lot of information about what's going on inside of Google. They're very protective of their intellectual property. They don't go into a lot of details about how they're able to index all of this and how it all works. It is something that they keep very close to their vest. And I guess it makes sense that they do, because you don't want other people being able to see into what they're doing. The best I've really been able to see, and this is a little bit enlightening to be able to do this, is Google has a 360 view of their data center. I'm going to turn this down just a little bit. You can't hear this on your side, but I'm playing a video that they have of the Google data center where they take you through a data center and they give you a 360 tour. You can even put on your favorite virtual reality, and they take you into the data center. This is obviously going to look kind of weird on here, but you can see all of the hardware that they're using to make all of this. Oh, that guy's like wondering what's going on there. Got security in. They got cameras. You can see it's just walls and walls and walls of hardware at Google as far as you can see. That's how they do it, is you throw hardware at the problem and you're able to make all of these things happen. I don't even know what they're doing now. I haven't even watched all of this video. But ultimately, I think if you're trying to figure out how does Google or any of these companies, the Facebook, there's a little bit of detail out there that you can find about how they make all of this work. But ultimately, they're not going to tell you how all of this works. There's obviously extensive things that they have done to optimize this process. But I think that once you get into it and look at it, you're never going to know a lot of detail about how it works unless you go work with Google and their developers and figure out how they're able to make it all happen, because it's a remarkable engine in the way that it operates. And now every quarter they're making multi-billion dollars. So they're not going to really spread that stuff around to let everybody know about the details. And I don't blame them. That's just one of those where, of course, they're not going to tell you how that works. We can kind of think about it. They do let a little bit out every once in a while. They change how things work with their engine. One of the reasons that when you go to professormaster.com that everything is encrypted is they told everybody during last year, they said, you know what? If you got an encrypted page or non-encrypted page that's asking people for information, like to sign up for a newsletter, we're going to kind of ding your Google rating a little bit. Which is maybe there's okay, so I need to make sure everybody has encrypted. When they go to that page, it needs to be encrypted. And instead of dealing with Google telling me which pages were not properly encrypted, I just encrypted everything. So now nobody can complain about anything on my site being insecure because everything's encrypted. There's no possible way that you're going to find a page there that's not going to be decrypted. Because I just automatically on the front end. In fact, if you ask for a page in a non-encrypted form, my front end is going to say, no, we're going to flip that around and automatically give you the encrypted version. That's an important thing I deal with when dealing with Google. You just never know how Google's going to change things around. They effectively own the search engine and advertising on the internet right now. And you can see they're trying to find other ways to make money as well. Their certification is a good example of that. We just never know what they're doing next. We never know if what they're doing is going to stick around. There's plenty of times that Google's gone off on a foray, realized it was horrible, and just decided, effective today, we're no longer going to be doing that. So we'll have to go figure out all those pieces. In the chat room, the questions come up. Should I study for the 401 or 501? Well, if you've been studying for the 401, you've got until July to take the exam. Keep studying for the 401. If you're just starting out, it might be a good idea to take the 501. That way, you're not pressured to get it done by a certain time frame. And the exam's a big one. It's not something that you're going to easily step through. So make sure you go through and really understand what's going to be expected of you on this exam. The 501's a big one. And they do ask for things that are a little bit different than the 401 exam. So they're kind of different in their scope. They're very different in content. So make sure you know the differences. I think if I was starting right now, trying to decide which one should I take, it's a difficult decision because you have to think, I'm going to want to take this relatively quickly. If I think I'm going to want to take it the next 3 months, I'd probably take the 401 because there's so many more pieces of information, so many more books. The videos for 401 have been available for years. You can find tons of people talking about 401 online. It's something a lot of people have already taken. You can get their experiences from. It's an easy one to gather information from. But if I was thinking the way I study for exams takes me a long time, I know that I could easily study 6 months for an exam. I would probably start with a 501 because I don't want to be coming up on the last day of this and then not be able to pass my exam and effectively have to start all over again with the 501, because it is an all over again scenario. 50% of the content is different on this exam. So that's one where that does become a little bit more of a challenge. In the chat room, somebody asking, I'll be taking some classes soon pertaining to Windows Server. Very nice. That's something that will be very practical to you. What should I be expecting to learn? Hopefully they'll be able to tell you what you'd be expected to learn. But when you're ever dealing with Windows Server, it's almost like a course on how to get Active Directory up and running, and it happens to be running on this server right here. That's kind of what these classes end up being. Active Directory is a world unto itself. It's a remarkably complex directory service, very powerful, and it becomes especially challenging when you get connecting multiple Windows domains together and assigning trusts and figuring out who does what. How do we blend these trees together? How do we make everything work properly? How do we set up the two-way trusts in the way we want to expect them to do? Active Directory itself, of course, has remarkable administrative functionality so that you're able to lock down, control, manage all the devices running Windows in your environment. It's very powerful. So if somebody's talking about Windows Server, that's probably what they're talking about. They're not talking about, hey, I've got a repository I can share files on, which is part of it, but that's just the very beginnings of Windows Server and getting those things there. Let's have a look at the other questions that came in. I got a few others that I saw go by. Let's see. We talked about textbooks. Labs, don't have lab info. We can talk about that on the next study group. Might be a good idea to really go into the labs and go on those pieces. The 501, though, as I mentioned, I have completely finished shooting video for my 501 courses. But if you went out to my website right now, to professormesser.com, which I will do in just a moment, and show you the 501 content, so my free SY0501 Security Plus videos. Here they are. So all of these videos that are out here go all the way through. I think they are complete through 5.5. Now, there are 6 sections to the Security Plus exam. In fact, 5.5 is not even the end of section 5. You go through 5.6, 7, and 8. So I've got about 10, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more videos to complete. Is that right? About right. 8 more videos to complete for section 5, and then section 6 is all cryptography. So I've got another 25 to 30 videos to edit. So there's a good bit there, but they're all in the can, as we say in the industry. They're all recorded. I have finished talking through all of those. So now I have to go through and edit all of them. So there will be many videos really editing. That's all I'm doing now is editing. So I'm going to really start putting them out. I used to put out 2 to 3 a day. Now you're going to see larger chunks, I hope, in being able to do that. So that would be useful to have them there. That might be something you can, of course, keep an eye on. If you subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn on the bell, you'll just get a notice every time when that happens. So you'll know exactly when those are coming in, when the next videos are there. And as soon as I put them online on YouTube, I immediately add them to the playlist, because there's a Security Plus playlist on YouTube as well. And there is a Security Plus list on my website that you see here. This is also, I add that minutes later. I go in, because I can't add this until I know the link to YouTube. It's you have to egg and chicken and all that nonsense. So I add it to YouTube first, add it to the playlist, stick it on here. It doesn't take very long. It takes maybe 30 minutes, sometimes an hour, sometimes longer if it's craziness going on in my world. But I try to get them out there as quickly as possible. So either place you go, you'll be able to find those, and they will all be there. But we're getting close to the end. Right now, there are 108 videos online. It's going to be, right now, is in 11 and a half hours worth of content. So there's going to be another whole section. The cryptography stuff goes into a lot of detail. So we've got other content in the cryptography. You've got block cipher modes. I go through each one of those and show you the pictures of how those work. There's a little bit more detail in cryptography that's available. So I'm not sure how long those videos are going to be. I don't even remember shooting some of them. You just sit down, they shoot. It's just constant. So we'll see. I'm not exactly sure when they will be done. That's the next question people ask is, when will they be finished? Whenever I finish them. One of the benefits of running your own company is you don't have to deal with any type of arbitrary deadlines that somebody assigns to you because they would like it done by a certain day just because. I work as hard as I can to get these things done, so they're going to get done whenever they get done. Setting a date on it doesn't help anybody because it might get done or it might not, or my kid might be sick and I have to go pick him up from school, or I have to go get a car fixed, or life gets in the way sometimes. So I like to have a certain number of things done a day. Is it going to get done? We'll find out. We'll find out together. That's the best way to do it, isn't it? I just don't know. We never know if it's going to get done that way. So that's always the challenge, is figuring out those pieces. Well, and we'll just keep an eye on it, because hopefully by the end of January, those will be done, and we can move on to the next thing, which is probably going to be updating Network Plus, which would be a lot of fun, which is almost done. The update for that, I just have to sit down and shoot video. So that'll be fun to do too. So that's kind of what's going on in my world with all of those pieces and figuring out how all of those things work together. Question in the chat room about virtualization. Which MAC address does a virtual machine take? And almost always you'll find that if it's in virtualization, you've got lots of options. Sometimes a virtual machine will share the physical adapter that is on a machine. And in those cases, it might use the same MAC address as the physical address on the virtualized platform. But sometimes they'll have their own IP address, their own internal network. They have their own MAC address that they build for that particular machine. Sometimes you can create your own MAC address and assign it to a server. You got lots of options there. I know when you get to the virtual world, a lot of people think it's completely different, but the reality is it's just the same as the regular world. On a physical machine, I could change the MAC address, or I could use the physical one. In a virtual machine, I could use the physical address on that device, or I could virtualize it and create my own. You've got a lot of options. It's kind of it's more physical world than it isn't, even though it's a virtualized environment. And if you think about each one of these servers as being a physical machine sitting in a rack, same way I visualize VLANs. With VLANs, I visualize separate switches that have their own VLAN rather than a single switch with multiple VLANs in it, so that then I can design in my head where all of these VLANs should be going to, how I should be trunking them and send them off to the other server. Same scenario in my head. That might help you or it might not. Following what I think about in my head might not be exactly where you want to go with that. But that's how I keep them straight in my mind. Hopefully that'll help you too. Well, we've come to the end of another hour. Come to the end of another study group. Can you believe it? 2 hours worth today. Thanks for joining us. We would not be able to do this study group without your help, without your participation, without your questions, without your phone calls, without the chat room. And it's a lot of fun. I like doing this every month too. We have another study group planned for the beginning of February. We have our A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus. You can always go to the Professor Messer website. Our list of calendar events is right there in the right sidebar. And there's also a pull-down link at the very top for our calendar. That calendar gives you an update on everything. There's links there also to Google Calendar. If you're a Google Calendar person, you can link to my Google Calendar, and I just update that so you'll know when everything is coming through. Thank you for joining us, though. Thanks for all of your help and your support, not only for joining us on these live events, but for your financial support by purchasing our courses and our study groups, our course notes, like the physical course notes. Would not be able to do this without you on that side either. It's remarkable, and I really do appreciate it. Thanks again for being here. We will see you next time on the Security Plus Study Group.